All right, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry that once again I had a longer break than I intended, but a lot of stuff. We had graduation yesterday. There was a lot of stuff in the way to get me to finally review Babel by Kong. And one thing to note is I typically do it where I do my non-spoiler section, break, and then my spoiler section. I have to edit that together, and I had to turn in my Chromebook to the school. So until my laptop gets here, I will be unable to do those kinds of editing. So, and I'm not doing it on my phone. No way. Just bear with me. I'm going to do a makeshift improv kind of cut between my non-spoiler and spoiler sections. But yeah, here is my review of Babel by R.F. Kang. I really enjoyed this book. I would probably say I don't know if I don't know if I finished Name of the Wind this year. If I finished it this year, this would be my second favorite book of the year. I don't know if I finished it last year. This would be my number one book of the year. I really enjoyed Babel. It was really good. From pretty much from all different angles, I enjoyed this book. Because it's a fantasy book. I like the magic system. I think it's an interesting avenue that isn't well explored. I mean, that this idea of translation and kind of the things lost in translation being used as a magic system. Like, I don't know a lot of languages. I took 4 years of Spanish, was not very good at it. But the idea of translation as a magic system, and like even from the little bit of Spanish I do know, I know that there's a lot of things that it's not an exact translation. I thought that was a really interesting and creative use of a magic system. I thought that was really interesting. I think the environment, I think the settings that we were in, was really good for plot driving purposes. I think it really helped out the story and helped out the plot. The setting itself, this old historic behind the times city that it feels so comfortable, and it uses that as almost a trap for our characters, and kind of encourages you to forget about what's going on. And I like the setting for that reason as well. The characters were really great. I think they were all well written, well fleshed out, and you can see the conflicting emotions and opinions and ideas of these characters throughout the book, and I think that was really I think they were just really well written. There are times where I was extremely frustrated with the characters, but in very believable ways. And I think they all acted in incredibly believable ways. I really enjoyed how all of the characters were portrayed. I enjoyed their internal conflict and struggles, and how that was able to grow, develop, and enhance their characters. I think that was really well done. I really enjoyed that part of the book. In addition, I think that the social commentary here was very well done. I think that, like, because the thing is I'm impressed by that, because there's a lot of times, especially with the commentary that that R. Kang is getting into here, with anti-colonialism and imperialism, there's a potential to do it wrong. I've read many books that have tried to say something profound about one issue or another, one sort of political commentary or another, and they just drop the ball. If you watch my last review, you can hear about how much I think the subtle knife failed, and how much I think that it fumbled its political messaging, and how it made for a worse story because of it. I think that here in Babel, I think that the political commentary enhances it in so many different ways. I mean, obviously, because that is a major underlying conflict of the story, but I think that the contrast of the political messaging contrasts very nicely with the setting, the environment, and how everyone around our characters treats the world, and I think that it just serves to enhance the best parts about this story, and I really enjoyed that aspect of the book. In addition, another thing that I enjoyed was the book feels very inevitable. From when you start to pick it up and as you read through it, what eventually happens seems inevitable, from the context of everything that's placed in front of you. Even the title, the full title, not just Babel, or the Necessity of Violence, an Arcane History of the Oxford Translators Revolution, everything about that really screams, it shows this inevitability of what is going to happen. You can kind of get it from the very beginning, what is the end of what the story is going to end up as. And it kind of leads this sense of foreboding across the whole story that's just heightened by our characters' reactions to different things. When it comes to writing, this was really good. I think the writing style was really well done. I enjoyed all of the different uses of languages throughout the book. Obviously, it's a book about translation, so that makes sense. But I learned a little bit about etymology that I didn't know before, and I enjoyed that as well. So overall, from my non-spoiler section, Babel stinking rocks. It was a really good book. It's not a book that I am. I talked about this in my Mistborn. The Mistborn review hasn't come out yet. I was talking about this in my Mistborn review, which I was hopefully releasing next week. I've already filmed that one, but I wanted to do this one in between. But one thing I talked about in that review is rereadability of books. This is a book that is phenomenal, but not necessarily as rereadable as some other books. But that isn't a detriment to this book. It's just, in my opinion, it's partially a testament to how just impactful this book is. That one read through is all you need to just get this book and get what it's trying to say, and just phenomenal job. I loved Babel by RFK. But we're in a spoiler section. This is my full screen spoiler section. Spoilers for Babel. I actually don't really have a lot. The thing about Babel is it's a really good book that I'm struggling to talk about. Because I think that I wouldn't say it's exactly like the Golden Compass, but I think in a lot of ways it functions very similarly to. It's a book. Well, it's not as fun as the Golden Compass. This book's a little bit more, but it's a book that has a very simple concept. Very obviously, the more magic systems are a little bit more complex, but it has a very simple in concept. You have Robin and Rami and all of them who've been pulled away from their homelands to Oxford in order to be translators and use their knowledge of their home languages in order to benefit the British Empire and become these translators, translators for the British. But as they go, and like it starts, we were focused on school, but eventually it shifts into this serious discussion, this serious conflict against the British Empire and what they're doing to Rami and Victoria and Robin's home cities and home countries, and before ultimately bringing all together with the Translators' Revolution. And the thing about that is, like I said, like the Golden Compass, it's a very simple book, right? The plot is not crazy or out there. The way that the story progresses isn't shocking or out of left field. It's fairly linear. It's fairly standard in how it progresses, and there aren't a lot of super big twists that you didn't necessarily see coming. A lot of this just, like I said, feels inevitable. But I think in the simplicity, Kong was able to do something. Was able to do something that just so profound in how she was able to write. It is I will always appreciate more a simple idea executed well than a complex, ambitious idea executed poorly. Because like this book, the political commentary is not something that hasn't been said before, but the way it's said is particularly impactful. The plot structure and the story beats aren't something that's never been seen before, but the way that they're done is particularly impactful. The characters are not entirely unique, but the way that they're written is super impactful. It's just everything here is just dialed up to 11. There's very simple concepts. Just turn the knob all the way over to make them as good as you possibly can make them. And that is, I think, the success of Babel. It's a very simple book and plot structure that it just does so much. And I think there's a lot of that weight that's carried by very, very good political commentary. At least for me, I would say Pratchett is the gold standard of satire, political, and societal commentary. in fiction. I'm sure that there are people who people would say are better, but of who I've read, Pratchett is the gold standard. And Kang's Babel here is on point with Pratchett. I think that it is just as effective and just as critical of the same thing that Pratchett criticized about as Pratchett, and that is I think that's the best part of the book, because good political commentary can really elevate a story, and I think that's what was really well done here in Babel. When it comes to characters, like I said, they're well written. There's nothing entirely super special about any of them that I like personally want to point out. I just really enjoyed especially the inner conflict, because we see it from Robin's perspective. That inner conflict with him, as he's coming of age, as he's starting to kind of try to realize who he is and what he believes, which is something that, like, I'm going through that right now. Graduating high school, going into college, I'm at that same point where I'm having to tackle my worldview and what I believe and that kind of stuff. And seeing Robin deal with those same things feels really poignant, at least in my life right now. But really, really well done in that respect. In addition, I think there's some interesting parts, especially near the end, especially trying to humanize. I think Letty, that one passage with Letty near the end, was kind of caught me off guard, because it takes a moment to humanize one of the bad guys. At this point, she's shown herself to be sided with the British, and taking that moment to humanize her is not something that I was expecting. And it also shows, contrasting her view with Robin and Victoria's, shows the flaws and problems in both of their viewpoints. Now, it does make clear, especially later on with what Letty eventually does make clear that the world that she supports and that she comes from is in the wrong there, but it also is able to poke holes and show the flaws in Robin's methodology, especially, and I think Victoria also is able to poke holes in that philosophy in very intriguing ways. I really think the climax of this book is very well done with how it grapples with the theme, not only with the themes of imperialism and all that kind of stuff, because that's more of like we can collectively agree that this is bad, right? I think that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting, that like we can collectively agree that drugging China is not a good thing, right? But as you kind of shift into the Translators' Revolution itself, that question of the difference between political activism and terrorism, and how far is too far in order to get the change that needs to come in the world. At what point are you doing more harm than good, and at what point are you hurting your own messaging through your methods, is a really interesting debate that I think goes on in that final couple of chapters. And that was actually one of the most profound parts of the book, is because the rest of the political commentary is well done. It is well done, but it's stating fairly obvious statements. I think we can agree. But those final passages do truly present a hard look at methodology in political change, and whichever one you end up believing, that's up to you. But I think it's a very interesting analysis that I was not expecting, but really ended up enjoying hearing that debate between Victoria and Robin in those final sections. But overall, I adore Babel. I do think I read Name of the Wind this year, so it's currently sitting at my number 2 book of the year right now. I love the book so much. But yeah, it was a really good book, and I highly recommend any of you, if you haven't read it yet, to go and read it. But when it comes next for my channel, Mistborn, I already filmed the Mistborn review, so I'll get that to you guys next week. I'll set that to premiere then, so I can make sure I get that one out. From there, I'm in the middle of Before They're Hanged. I think I'm about halfway through, so I should be able to get that to you by the end of June. After that, I'm reading Lies of Locke Lamora. And from there, we'll see. I've got a number of books that are on hold from the library but they're taking forever to get in. So we'll see when those eventually come in. Once again, if you have suggestions for books you think I should read, put them down in the comments. If I haven't read, oh, this was actually a recommendation. I forgot to mention this. Humble Nut. I don't know what video they commented under, but they suggested I read Babel, and so I did. So thank you for the suggestion. I really enjoyed it. So yeah, so put down any book suggestions down in the comments below, and I'll try to read them when they get in from the library. It kind of takes a while. But after that, I don't think I'm necessarily going to do a week-by-week summer review. I was able to do it last year because I was reading a bunch of Discworld books, so I could get through multiple in a week. I'm not really doing that this year, so that probably isn't going to be the case. But I will try to get reviews to you all throughout the summer. And the next big change for my channel, I guess, will be at some point in August. I will no longer be standing in front of this background. I'll probably be sitting at a desk in my dorm room at Virginia Tech with these reviews. So look forward to that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.